This video is sponsored by Squarespace. In my last video, I spent 5 days on a little Danish peninsula together with my friends Bertram and Don. We're having a good time doing some bushcraft, collecting oysters, cooking them on the fire. We're baking bread, tapping bird sap and all kind of other good stuff. And of course we brought the dogs. I also went out with my camera to explore the island, and it was my hope to get some photos of the fallow deer on this location. This time I'm on the west coast of Denmark to practice my bird photography, and I just thought I wanted to share some of the techniques I use when I feel a little rusty and needs to get back in shape. I also want to show how I take care of my equipment after a day with lots of rain, sand and salt, so that my equipment doesn't get damaged. So I'm out here at my favorite bird location near to where I live, with all these kittiwakes flying around, and the sea is beautiful. It is raining, or it started to rain, so I reckon the equipment will get a little wet, so will I. The reason why I'm here today is because I actually want to do some practicing. I want to practice my bird photography, and the reason why I do that is two things. First of all, I have got a new camera, or that means Nikon has borrowed me a new camera, the Z6II. I'm looking forward to getting to know that a little better. And every time I get a new camera or a new piece of equipment, I always go out and test it before actually bringing myself in a situation where I don't want to lose the moment. So new camera, new lens is equal to going out, testing it, not because I doubt the equipment, but because I doubt myself. I want to get to know that equipment. I want all the small details. I want to get to know the autofocus system fully, and I want just be comfortable. And often that is the reason why when I'm in a good situation, with a good light, with a good animal, I rarely miss the moment when I know my equipment. So I feel a little rusty, and this is the main reason why I'm here today. I want to practice my bird photography. I want to get comfortable again with my equipment so that it is in my muscle memory rather than I have to faff around with the gear. And I thought it would be maybe be helpful if I could show you a few of the techniques I actually use for this. So after a cup of coffee, it's time to go to the birds and get that photography back in the fingers and the muscle memory. So there are basically two techniques I use here to practice my skills. The first is I look at a subject and I have my camera, and then I look in the viewfinder. And what I always experience is very little things has to change before I do not see what I'm aiming at. I don't know if you know that feeling of looking at something with a telephoto lens, taking it up, and then you can't find it. It's I did make a video about this. I'll link in the description where I talk a little more in depth. But it's like aiming with a gun, where you do sheet shooting, I think it's called. You don't aim, you just use your muscle memories, take the gun up, and then bam, these made of clay. And it has to be the same with the camera, because you cannot go up and try to find the bird like here, and then you have to search for it, and then it's gone. It has to be like you look and there's a bird, and then you try, and I do that again and again and again until it's not done in one day, but I do that again and again and again until I feel comfortable with this camera. And the reason why it's a little different than the Z6 with a battery grip is just because the way I hold the camera is slightly different. And it sounds odd, but it's just how it is. And before the season really starts with a lot of these birds, and I'm going out here to actually make photos, I need to be in shape, in a photography shape. So this is a technique I'm trying to do now, and luckily there are a lot of birds, so it's a perfect place to practice. And of course, I'm also trying to get some good photos now where I'm here, so it'll not be only practice. If it's too difficult, I'll take the Tamron 150 to 600, start at 150. When that's easy, go to 300, go to 500, go to 600. And of course, you can translate that to this exact lens, the 600mm. But I feel that once you get the feeling on how to get the camera up, it's very little. Oi. The one coming in with grass. No, it's just when you know it with one lens, it's very little adjustments that you have to do to translate to another lens. But yeah, let's see if we can get something. It's really raining now, and the equipment is soaked, and it's really important to get that right when we come home. Not because of the water, but primarily because there's a lot of salt in the air because it's windy. But talk about that when we get back in the behind the scenes, how I deal with that. I can really feel that I'm a little rusty. But already now, after some time, it's getting much better. Another thing I'm practicing now is to follow the bird. And I know I can rely a lot on the new autofocus systems, but I still like to be able to actually follow the bird if I'm in tricky situations. So what I do is take a single point autofocus here, and then I find the bird and I just follow it around like so. And because my autofocus point is so tiny, I try to concentrate on not thinking about the equipment here, but trying to find the right tension on the video head. And then I just try to think of the eye of the bird and let my body and hands and the whole thing just move according to that. Very good thing about practicing this is when I get to the badgers and I have moving badgers in very low light. This is extremely efficient because that'll let me photograph a badger. If I get really good at this, it can maybe let me photograph a badger on half a second and keep focusing on the eye, not because of the focus, but because of the motion blur I can get. You know, one of these photos where the eye or the face is sharp and the background is blurred. So moving my lens around, following the bird, it gives me that good feeling of knowing my equipment, and like knowing my equipment so good that I actually forget my equipment and just think about the subject. And the same thing is if I see something and I aim, if I just have the bird in the center of the frame, like basically almost hitting the bird with the center autofocus point at the first try, it will result in me getting so comfortable with the equipment that I forget my equipment. and it will also give me much more sharp photos. So this is a typical day for me when I'm like not out actually to make photos, but I just go out and practice and practice and practice so that I can like remain the comfortable feeling of handling my equipment. So I don't know if that's helpful, but at least that's what I do. I mean, I don't know if it's helpful for you, but it is for me. But now, let me film some birds, let me photograph some birds, and see what I can get. Wow, it's raining, if you didn't notice. Time for some coffee now. Everything is completely soaked. Oy. Oy. There was a lot of rain in very short time. Probably not the best day for practicing, but I had nothing better to do, so. That was a very wet round of bird photography, and everything here is just soaked. Things are drying. The tripod is drying, and inside the bag there's still a lot of wetness and a lot of sand. There's no doubt that if you want your camera equipment to last like forever, the best thing is to leave it in the bag, never take it up, and just every so often recharge your battery so it doesn't die. Then it will last forever. But nature photographers do not do that. They use their equipment in rough weather, rain, sand, snowstorm, blizzards, and in this behind the scenes I just want to show you how I clean and take care of my equipment so that I'm 100% sure that next time I take it up and I need it, it will work with me. So yeah, let's get to it. Before we move on, I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Squarespace lets you build professional looking websites without any knowledge about coding and web design. You simply choose one of the many great looking templates, and by dragging and dropping photos and changing the text and colors, you can make it your own. You can create beautiful galleries to showcase your work, and it's very easy to update the gallery with your latest photos. It also has built-in e-commerce, so you can start selling your prints, calendars and digital products. So if you need a new website, head over to squarespace.com to start your 14 days free trial. And you can use the off code Morten Hilmer to get 10% off your first purchase. I've put a link in the description. So, as you can probably see, this thing is really wet and full of sand. And let me just go through what I actually do before I go into the car. Because when I left the beach, I went to a little place with a little less wind, and there was a little grass and no sand. When I'm out there, I remove the batteries and I remove the memory cards. And I do that because when I come home, I don't want to take things up from the back because it was pretty cold out there and here it's pretty warm. And if I take the cold things in, everything will just get foggy. When I come home, I have my batteries and my memory cards in a pocket, and then I take them up, put them in the charger, put the cards, empty them, and then they're ready for the day after. So now, before I get the equipment in to the car, it's quite important that I do a few things, and one of them is not to rub too much here because there are so much sand everywhere. And while I don't care so much about the water because the equipment is kind of weather sealed, the sand is really a thing that can destroy everything because it gets in everywhere, to the buttons, to the dials, and then when you move it, it's like sandpaper. And this is also the reason why I don't close my tripod fully, because sand is very hard to actually dry even though you use a grass or a cloth, because then you have the sand in the cloth. So usually I always have the lower part of the legs out when I'm places with sand, and then I just leave it like this, because then when they dry, sand can just be taken off with a brush. What I don't want is to get sand into these parts here. I do not want to try to dry the equipment as long as there's sand sticking on it. And if it was a dry day with sand, it would be nice because then the sand would just fall off. But the worst combination I know of is the combination of sand and water and a lot of salt in the air because we are near the ocean. So what I wanted to do here was just basically to get rid of most of the water, put my equipment down and take care of it when I come home. And with everything in the back, I was ready to just put it in the car and go home and then take care of it back home where everything is good. Now this has been in the bag and it has been temperated, but it's still wet. And you can see now, even though I'm sitting here next to the fire, there's no actually condensation on the lens itself, no condensation on the camera or like inside. And that is quite important to me. So now I can put it here close to the fire. It's apparently not burning because I'm not roasting yet. And the same with the microphone. a lot of sand is in it. So off with the dead cat, leave things next to the fire and just let things dry completely. If I did not deal with sand, I would have dried it out there. I would have dried it when I come home with a clean cloth, and then I would do exactly the same. Just put it here, leave the oven, and then when I come back like 10 hours later or the next day, everything is completely dry. So the camera now basically needs to be completely dried, and before I actually start cleaning it. When I do clean the camera, there's a few steps I follow. First of all, before I do any rubbing around with anything, I need to get the sand off. And for that purpose, I have this, just a cloth. That can be this cloth. Sorry, need some coffee. Or a cloth, like a microfiber cloth. That's not that important, I think. And then I basically, rather than rubbing like this, I make so like a soft thing. And then let's just say it's dry now. I basically start like so to get sand away. It's actually already falling off. And then when all the sand is gone, or most of the sand is gone, I can start to take care of I'm not doing it like step by step now, because you will have to sit there forever. But when this rough part is done, and the reason why I don't rub is, again, we don't want the sandpaper. Then I have the front element here, and what I do is I have a little brush, one that the ladies use for putting things in the face. This one is just a cheap one. You can fold it out so you protect the hair. And what I do then is I start here with a lens, just like that. Because the hairs are so soft, so I can get into all the corners and I can remove all the sand. And now I can see it looks like fog, but it is not. It is salt, but more about that a little later. So here, that is a sensitive part, and this is a sensitive part, the screen and the viewfinder. Take all parts off that can come off. So, and yeah, all sand has to go away. When that is done, sand is away, water is away. Stay here. I can start with another cloth, take a clean one so you're 100% sure there's no sand in it. And then you can actually start to dry, see if there's wet underneath the neoprene, all that stuff. And now you're actually sitting with a lens that looks completely clean, but it is not. It's still full of salt. And if you doubt yourself, you can basically take your tongue and stick it on the glass, and you can taste the salt. What I do then is I take a cloth similar to the one I used out there, a microfiber cloth, and I dip it in water, and do like that. And then I actually take over the lens and the camera equipment with a wet cloth. Dip it in the water, do it again, do that 2 or 3 times, because that will remove the salt. And then at the very end, you take another clean cloth and dry it, because now you have a piece of equipment that is free of salt, free of sand, and free of water. And then the last thing I do is I actually take off the camera and I make a check to see if there are any water that has come into these rings. Luckily no. Luckily no. Just because sometimes if you're really unlucky, small drops of water can come in, especially when you're using the adapters and stuff. Every time you have one of these joints, it's not good. And then now your equipment is fine. Your microphone is, if you're using a microphone, it's dry. Your Your tripod is fine. Last thing I do with that when it's dry is I fold it out completely, and I either take it to the shower or I just take a wet cloth again and dry it, so that you don't have these sounds full of sand. So sometimes I need to take these off, brush it with a stiff brush, take it on again, give it a little fat, and then yeah, clean it off also, and then you're good to go. Last thing that has to be done is the back, because when you put the things in the back out there, it will get full of oh, that's a moth. We don't want that to go and eat the wool sweaters. I basically let it dry, and then when it's completely dry inside, I take a vacuum cleaner, and then I just clean very carefully so I get rid of all the sand. And yeah, that's basically it. The same go with the clothes. You see it's drying there. If you have been out in a lot of salt, it sounds maybe a little weird, but what I do is, like, when I come home, I just go into the shower with the rain clothes on, and I take just cold water and do like that. Take a shower with the clothes on, because you need the salt, and especially salt needs to go away because it's not good for the fabric. I basically think that was it. It's wasn't that inspiring, I think, to watch me practice bird photography and then talk about cleaning my equipment, but I actually didn't think I wanted to make a video about it. I just wanted to go out and practice, but then I thought, like, why not share a little what I do when I'm not photographing. And I didn't get any really good photos out there, but it was really nice to practice and get that in my fingers again. And so I'm ready for the season. And also I think it's always a good balance between, like, being so scared about using your equipment that you, every time there's a little rain or a little snow, you pack it away. There's a balance between that, fine line between that, and then, like, being really rough with your equipment. And I think I use my equipment in a little the rough way, because I never leave it in the bag regardless the weather. But the harder you use your equipment, I think the more you have to take care of doing these things if you want it to last. Because I don't mind so much if my equipment lasts for 6 years or 7 years. But what I really care about, and what I'm really afraid of, is to be out there, let's say Ellesmere Island, or on an expedition, or just with the badgers, like one of these rare moments where things are just beautiful and then suddenly you have a failure. Like I had with I don't know if you remember in Scotland when I was shooting with my Tamron 150-600, and suddenly I had to shoot a full day of manual focus because it just didn't work, and that was definitely a water damage. But I think that was it for this time, and yeah, take care, and see you out there.